everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's 7 p.m. my time. If you're on the West Coast, you're a little bit earlier, but big thank you for everyone for joining us on these past 5 days of the USRowing 2020 convention. We are completely blown away with the support, with the amount of attendees, with the speaker engagement, and everyone's really positive contributions to our chat for the past 5 days. And really addressing some of the really important topics that we have had come up over that time. So thank you all for joining us, sticking it out. We have one more session. We have some referee tracks tomorrow, but other than that, this is our last session of the 2020 USRowing Convention. So thank you for being here. Tonight, you guys are gonna have some fun. This is a fun group right here. So we have the Coastal Rowing Happy Hour. So I am going to strongly encourage everyone, grab a drink, grab some snacks, really relax for these next 2 hours. You have very interesting videos to be watching. So this is a fun kind of take a deep breath and sit back and enjoy your Saturday night. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our sponsor. Jim Henderson with Coastal Rowing USA is here, and he's going to give you guys a little bit of information about what he does. Jim? He's unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Go. Yep, we can hear you now, Jim. Thank you.
Very good. We do like to have a lot of fun here, and if I don't do or say something that makes everybody laugh, it won't be par for my course. Anyhow, welcome. It's great to see all the enthusiasm. It's great to see all the people. It's great to see not only the enthusiasm here on the meeting, but in the sport. My wife and I, so this is my wife, Shelly. And Shelly and I, we're in this together. And I can tell you, I will have to apologize. It got to that point where I've got to have the glasses on and I got to read, or if I'll forget or anything I want to say. But basically, just go through a few notes. My wife and I, we have been rowing coastal boats for about 3 years. We love it. We love the sport. We love the boats. We really enjoy it. We've raced a little bit. We've had a great time with that. We had the honor of racing with Jim Dietz in Norwalk, Connecticut in 2019 in a race. And that was very exciting. He might tell you a little about that. I'll let him do that. I will tell you, it was very festive on the outer legs of the course. So sometime we get together, I'll tell you that longer story. Anyway, we really enjoy this sport. We are having a blast. And so we're really glad to be here. We're very excited to get the opportunity to host this meeting and bring this to a lot of people. In 2019, we hosted a race here, a FISA style race in Sarasota. Everybody that came, that we talked to, all the rowers, all of the enthusiasts that came, both parents and family, and all of the spectators that came, they all had a blast. It's a great time. It was out on the beach, so we really enjoyed that. We're very much looking forward. We're very excited. We're very much looking forward to helping USRowing put on beach sprint trials here in June of 2019. We all got our fingers crossed we're going to be able to navigate COVID and get out of this nightmare, but we should be good with that. And anyway, that's going to be an exciting time for everybody to come. So hopefully we'll get to see a lot of people there.
2021.
Thank you. 2021.
You said 2019.
2019. Sorry about that. So the beach sprints are going to be in June of 2021. Sorry, coming up in about 7 months. So
that's why I'm here.
That's why Shelly's here. She'll keep me on track. So real quickly, we're a dealer for light boats here in the U.S. And we are happy to help anybody who wants to buy a boat. Great. But we really are here. We're really interested in growing this sport. That is really our main objective, because that's going to bring everybody along. And I want to make an interesting note, mention something. We just had our yearly meeting with all of the light boat dealers, Zoom meeting. And what was interesting was the European dealers, what they are seeing is the majority of their sales are with clubs. And here in Sarasota and here in the United States, the majority of sales that we see are private. And while we like, we're happy to sell boats to whoever needs them, the clubs over there they've really engaged the coastal movement. They're using the boats a lot in a lot of different ways. And I wanted to try to bring that up and give that to people to think about. The boats they are much more forgiving. They're more stable. and they're not near as intimidating. If you have new rowers, learn to row people, it's not a scary boat to get into. And we think that's a great fit for clubs, because basically you can take these boats, you can use these boats to welcome new members to your club, people who never thought about rowing before. You can also take these boats, this sport is a lot of fun, the boats are a lot of fun, and you can also take them out and use them. We take ours out, we row all the time, anything up to small craft advisors. And you can take them out, they're safe, you can have a great time with them. So you can use them to re-energize, reinvigorate club members within your club, something new to try, go out and have some fun. And then we also see where I won't say older, more experienced rowers, seasoned, there you go, that maybe they're not comfortable anymore with the challenges of the fine water boats, that the coastal boats give them an opportunity to get back in the boats and go and row. And we have people come and row with us well up into their 70s. And they really enjoy them. They have a great time, and they always walk away with a smile. I haven't had anybody yet who hasn't walked away with a smile, so we're very happy about that. To that extent, if anybody gets a chance to come to Sarasota, please contact us. We'd be happy to take you out for a row. We have a fleet of boats here, which is our racing fleet, and right now we currently have 4 singles, 4 doubles, and 4 Cox quads available. We've been working around COVID. Obviously, right now we're primarily working with the singles, but if you've got a team that's together or a couple or whatever, obviously that can row in a pair, that's great. The quads have been kind of sitting on the shelf for a while. But if you come to town, fantastic, get with us and let us know you're coming, and we'd love to go throw the boats in the water and go out for a row. The other thing, our website, coastalrowingusa.com, there's a shameless plug. If you go on that website, you can click on the link. There's a link for Regatta in a Box. And Regatta in a Box is our fleet of race boats in a trailer and a rig that we can take it around. And just give you an idea. So we'd love to have people come here. If you can't come here, give me a call. We can talk about if we can come to you and make arrangements to do something up at your club or with your group or something like that. So just some things to think about. Moving quickly, because there's a big presentation to come. I was asked to speak briefly about availability. So with COVID right now, we're experiencing 6 to 8 month lead time on boats when we put in an order. So we're just about to get an order. We have about 10 boats available. They're all recreational. All the race boats have already been sold. We placed that order months ago. We are getting ready to place another order, and that order we expect to come in early summer. So late May, early June, that's what we're hoping for. With everything, we're all facing the challenges of COVID. That could get disrupted, but that's what we're looking at. So no pressure, but if someone wants boats, give me a call and let me know. One of the things, and I'll go back just briefly to the situation with the boat houses. One of the challenges we're facing with coastal is getting the boats around the country, and then getting people out in the boats and get them to experience the boats. And if we can begin to get some boats populated around the country where within the clubs, or people can go to other clubs and try these things out, then you can put on little races and scrimmages. It's easy to do. It's an absolute blast. They're going to show you as you go through here. If you've got a rowing dock and 250 meters off your rowing dock, you can take a couple of buoys, throw them in the water, and you can go out and have a race. And if you've got 2 boats, you can do round robin racing and relay racing. And I'll tell you, you can work through 50 people on the shore in a couple hours, have an absolute blast. It's just a ball. Great family event, a lot of fun. So things like this, we're very excited to see that the Olympics is, the recent announcement about 28 games. That's great. The ball's moving forward on that. Coastal's big around the world. We need to grow it here in the United States and get up to speed so we can go and compete in the 28 games. So we're really looking forward to being a part of that and helping people get into that. But as I said, I'll talk too long.
You're doing just fine.
There's a fantastic presentation tonight, and you have absolutely top-notch people that are going to put it on for you, and they're going to do a way better job than I. So I'm gonna get out of the way and let them get to it. Hope everybody enjoys it. I've got my drink. Shelley, you got yours? She's got hers.
It's empty, though.
Cheers to y'all.
Great.
Great
Thank
evening.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much. Thank you to you and Coastal Rowing USA. That was fantastic, and we really appreciate you sponsoring the 2020 US Rowing Convention. We have, again, like I said, a great panel. We have Jim Dietz, Bob Ernst, Alice Henderson, Sharon Weinbar, and Hannah Wayment-Steele. You're going to hear from each of them today. To start it off, Alice is gonna kick us off here. A little bit of background on Alice. Alice started rowing in 1982 and has been involved in some capacity ever since as an athlete, coach, referee, and club administrator. Alice was introduced to Coastal in 2013 when studying to be a FISA umpire. Alice was part of the jury at the 2018 World Coastal Championships and chief referee at the San Francisco FISA Style Endurance Regatta in 2019. Alice has trained athletes in coastal, endurance, and beach sprints, including a recent U19 ID camp. I'm not sure there's a more perfect person to kick this off. So Alice, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it immediately to you. Attendees, please go ahead and put your questions in the Q&A. We are gonna address them at certain points throughout the conversation, but keep them coming as you see fit. Alice, thank you.
Oh, thanks, Sarah. So each one of our panelists thank you all for being here. I hope you all have a drink. Some of my friends are sending me photos of their drinks, which seems appropriate. So if you don't have a drink, go get one. We are going to make it fun is our goal and informative. And we do have a good group. Each one of the other presenters will say a little bit about themselves when they come on to speak. I know from the people attending, there's a lot of people who are involved in coastal rowing that are signed in. And if you could just in that chat section, shout out to yourself, because part of the coastal phenomenon is there's more people doing it than we know about. And we have a large panel with a lot of diversity, but there's other people in there doing that. So if you're in there, if Dave Tron's on there and he's building coastal singles, put that in there. There's other people running different organizations, put that in there so we can help build that community with the people on the panel as well as the people in the audience. So first up, we're going to go over our topics. I'm not going to read the agenda to you. This will all be kind of clear, but it is a broad overview in 2 hours that we're going to hit. And we have a lot of good videos that we think will explain it as well as us talking about it. So this is an exciting new type of rowing, and some people refer to it as the mountain bike or adventure, or if Red Bull took over flat water. And it's a way to increase our sport that we all love. I feel like coastal capping this convention is ideal because a lot of this convention was talking about how to make our tent bigger and how to grow what we do. And I think that the 5 days culminates in coastal reflects that. It's a great way to increase our sport. So without further ado, let's check out a wilder cousin. And I'm hoping this is working. Oops. Is it working for you guys or no?
No, the slide has not advanced from the.
Okay, good. See, we all have skills and this isn't necessarily one of mine. Good, great. Okay, so let's see. Sorry, I will do better next time. There's the topics that I thought I was showing you and I wasn't. All right, here's the picture where I was saying how cool it is. And now here's a better video.
There's running on land, jumping in the boat, going around some buoys, coming in, sprinting.
It's a lot more difficult than I imagined. You can practice as much as you want, but if you get hit by a wave coming in or even going out, or if the conditions completely change, you get blown off the buoy. The most difficult part is finding the right routes to go. It's the buoy turns and the slaloming that's so different to what we're used to.
Rowing in the troughs of the waves, it's so hard. It just feels a lot heavier. And then once you get riding on the wave, then your boat picks up like crazy.
You feel like death and that your legs don't work anymore and they're just jelly that's flopping right underneath you.
Everything is very difficult, actually. I'm absolutely not experienced, but I still find it very exciting, and I want to continue playing this kind of races.
C'est totalement moins prévisible. Les gens qui regardent, ils s'attendent à voir des boîtes, des choses qui se passent.
C'est vraiment très très spécial comme effort.
Sprint back, and try to stretch your legs to get back in the stand and hit the buzzer. So it's very, very new to me and exciting. I think it's just a lot more fun in a sense that you're on a beach and having music.
The fine riverboats, it's all about you. It's all about controlling everything and within an inch of your life. But here, when you get out on the ocean and it's just the energy it brings into the boat feels it's alive.
There's so much going on when you're out there.
You don't know what to expect. Conditions can change at the snap of a finger.
I like the challenge of not knowing what's going to hit you in 2 strokes time, let alone 500 meters time.
Le fait de faire un parcours, de ne pas être en ligne, de négocier le courant, de surfer la vague, c'est des sensations complètement différentes.
There is a possibility of hitting each other, clashing each other.
You can row really well and be really fit and really strong, but if you mess up the start and you mess up the turns and you don't interact with the other boats well, you won't necessarily win.
The one thing we know about the sea and the ocean is it's unpredictable. It's the only predictable thing about it is it's unpredictable.
It's exciting to be part of rowing at this time when it feels like something completely different is about to happen and be at the start of the sport as it's growing. It feels like we're pioneers of the sport.
Excellent. Oops. Oop. Okay, now I have to figure this out. Sorry. As I said, I have skills and this might not be one of them, but more people are sending me drinks, which are looking really good. Well, next is Jim talking about boats, because I've lost my thing here, and the history of coastal rowing. And boy, I'm glad I don't have anything dangerous on the back of my screen here.
Thanks, Alice. I've been asked to speak about the history of coastal rowing or the history of rowing. And first, I want to thank Coastal Rowing USA and Jim Henderson and Lightboat for sponsoring this and supporting coastal rowing, supporting US rowing. I think it's really important, and I think it's going to be great for the growth of our sport. I think Alice picked me to speak about the history of rowing because I'm the oldest person here. All right. But I will defer to Tom Wield, who is one of our rowing historians. And Tom was interesting in one of his presentations that I was privileged to hear when he described rowing as the only sport in the modern Olympics started by Pierre de Coubertin that was a sport derived from an occupation. And what that occupation was the watermen on the Thames River ferrying people back and forth to their various jobs or destinations. And that was witnessed by the students at Eton and later Oxford and Cambridge. And that became our flat water racing as we know it today. But really, the genesis of rowing goes much further beyond that. And we have to look to the watermen that ferried cargo out to out to frigates and schooners long before there were piers in our harbors. All right, and the distance coastal rowers who are our fishermen and whalers who were rowing miles away from their ships and away from shore in order to get their catch or get their source of whale oil or whatever, you know, and whenever that group of people were around, there was a competition to it. All right. And then later in the 1900s, when the Industrial Revolution came about, people had more leisure time. People started to go to the beaches. And that was the genesis of our lifeguards and our Coast Guard. And all of that was about the skills that those people needed for their profession to be able to get off the beach, to swim, to get your boats out onto the water and be able to save people and stuff like that. I think, Alice, it's very interesting that if you read Henry Dana's 2 Years Before the Mast, published in 1840, all right, he will describe, and I've read this book twice, I've loved it so much. He described the skill that it took to get a boat off of the shore in Los Angeles when the waves and stuff were coming in and the running start you had to have. And basically that's the genesis of our beach sprints today. You know, it's really quite extraordinary. So we have two sports today, which I think is going to grow our sport universally, and that's what FISA and World Rowing want today. But they're both of the same genesis. And what I love about it is they're both based upon work. All right, there ain't no free lunch. You have to get out. You have to do the work and make the boats go. You know, there are two types of rowing that we're going to be looking at. The distance racings, and we see it across the country in California and the Catalina Challenge, and here on the East Coast in the Blackburn Challenge. The same whaleboats, as late as 1952, the Portuguese whalers from New Bedford, Massachusetts, were still going out in pulling boats to bring whales in. All right, and those boats today are being used in a lot of these coastal events, distance events at the Blackburn Challenge and other events here on the East Coast. And I think it's great that you're finding this, and you'll see this throughout the world, the different boats in Spain, in Greece, in Ireland, the Cora boats, many different types of boats that are being used around the world. The International Federation, FISA, now World Rowing, they've tried to classify this boat as of recently. The Blackburn Challenge has put in a special class just for the FISA or world class boats, and it's based basically upon hull design. All right, the length of the boat, the beam of the boat, or the width of the boat, and the weight of the boat, trying to centralize things and make all of these disciplines from around the world, one discipline that we can all partake of. Jim Henderson, in his introduction, I think, hit on many of these points that I think are fabulous, that you have the ability to get out in any conditions. It's a great training boat. I use this boat not only for my flat water race training as part of cross training, but also racing the boat. You have a lot more versatility of getting around in these boats and having a great experience. I mean, for me, moving to Cape Cod, I'm rowing various sections of Cape Cod every day, just going from point to point and seeing if my wife can find me at the other end to take me home, you know. But that's the kind of nice stuff that you have going on. As training boats, I think they're fabulous training boats for any athlete. If you're starting athletes in the sport of rowing, no better way to do it than putting them in a coastal boat that has great set, so they can learn the rudiments of the stroke and learn to propel the boat. And as long as you're outdoors, you're loving it. And I think that this is going to be a great boon for rowing. Alice, I don't know whether you want me to talk about the weights or the length or the cost of these boats at this time, but
look, there's the slide. Perfect.
Oh, that's the slide. Good. Oh, I'm right on things here. Good. So the coastal single is roughly around 19 feet long and weighs 77.2 pounds, and that's the Fisa weight. It's self-bailing, and you can gather that by the look of the stern of the boat where it's cut off. A wave comes in, a wave goes right back out the other side. The coastal double, 24 feet 6 inches, weighs about 143 pounds. The nice thing I like about this boat is that you can row it as a male boat, as a female boat, or a mixed boat. And there again, it's just going to add to the diversity of our sport and what we're able to do. And I think international rowing is looking towards that mixed event, which I think could really be exciting. The coastal quad, Jim Henderson touched on it earlier. I think this is the best boat of the fleet. I love this. And I think whether you're a flat water club or a ocean water club, you want to have one or two of these coastal quad widths in your arsenal, because these boats are great for training your young athletes. They're safe, you know. The load factor, I think, really helps. I mean, I'm finding that myself. I'm rowing my coastal single, and then I get into my flat water boat, and I think, wow, look at the rockets. It's going here, you know. The other thing that I think is going to make things really attractive here is the cost of the boats. All right, your single is going to run somewhere around $4,600. Your double, you know, roughly $8,000, and your quad with roughly, you know, $14,500, $15,000 for a boat. But these are boats, you know, made out of, you know, synthetic materials that you get them in your boathouse, they're going to last 100 years. We'll be long gone and these boats will still be fresh. Trust me, you know. And what I've found is rowing these boats up on beaches and places like that, no harm, no foul, no damage. You know, you just keep going, and that's really it. We're all focusing here, and I think Jim Henderson touched on it a little bit, you know, and I know FISA or World Rowing now is looking towards the top of the pyramid and the Olympics. But I really feel the real growth of the sport is going to come from the bottom of the pyramid. I think that this is just a fabulous vehicle for learn to rows, for young kids, for masters, for going out, for doing rowing tours, distance rowing races. Sure, you got your beach sprints and stuff like that. But I think what we love about rowing is the ability to sit in a boat and go places. And these boats are going to give you more opportunity to do that. easier to transport. You know, your coastal single is roughly 18, 19 feet long, a lot easier to move around than your flat water single at 26, 27 feet long. Excuse me, I better drink because it's happy hour. But I see a lot of upside potential for these boats. Oh, I see the figures are even coming up here. Alice, you're really good. This is great. All right, well, I think I've touched on my points. I'd be glad to chime in later.
Thanks, Jim. So
Thank you.
we put up a picture here of a triple that Lifeboat is now producing, which can be a coxed pair, a coxed double, or a triple, just as something fun to put there if people are trying to decide, should we buy a double or a quad?
Alice, I'll tell you about the first triple I ever rode. When they were thinking about adding lightweights to the Olympics, Melch Bergen from Stenfleet actually made a pair width into a triple. And I rode a triple with Melch Bergen and Harry Parker in Bled Yugoslavia, I think, when it was still Yugoslavia back in '79. So I like the idea of a triple also.
Excellent. Every boathouse should have one.
Every boathouse.
Here's a little bit more about boats.
I'm Jerry Owen. I'm here at the USRowing Coastal Champs 2019 in Hong Kong, where we've just been looking at what's so different about coastal boats and coastal rowing. The boats need to be really stable for coastal rowing because obviously you've got massive waves and mess and wash from all the boats around you, especially here in Victoria Harbour with all the big ships going past. They're super wide. You see them compared to a riverboat, which is really skinny, like narrower than your hips, and they're really big. Secondly, the boats spin really easily. So compared to a riverboat where you either need to go like straight line for 2K or just follow the meanders of a river, in this you've got buoy turns where you just need to like spin on a sixpence up to like 180 degrees in some courses. So the boats are a lot shorter. It doesn't really matter if you get hit by a massive wave as well. The boats are self-bailing, so any water that comes in just drains straight out the back. So you can literally put them 10 meters underwater and they'll just pop straight back up, all the water will drain out. Yeah, is there anything else to say?
Okay, I think he's adorable. So next up is Sharon talking about coastal endurance. Well,
Endurance
I
racing.
the slide in a way that's less disruptive, but take it over, Sharon.
That's
And
okay. Yeah, hi. So hi to everybody and thank you so many. We have 85 participants, wow, on a Saturday night. I am so psyched. So I'm a member of the USRowing committee that's helping to expand coastal rowing, both recreational and racing across the United States. And I've raced at Coastal World Championships in the last 2 years, 2018 in Canada and 2019 in Hong Kong. And it was definitely crazy there in Hong Kong. And Alice is right, that kid is so cute. I'm going to talk a little bit about the longer form of racing, both international elite style, so world championship style, as well as some of the regional races that we have across the US. It's definitely something that happens. So the word coastal does not mean that it has to be on an ocean, just to be clear. And you'll see in a couple of slides a map of where coastal rowing happens in the United States. But we've had World Rowing Coastal World Championships on lakes in Europe and other places. And that's one of the big attractions of this form of rowing is any place where the water is choppy, these boats are really great and it can be really fun. I just sent a note to all the coastal rowers at BIAC because we have a big storm here this weekend and king tide. So there's 4-knot currents and winds, and that makes for some really exciting rowing. Alice, can you put the next slide, please? So just as an example, Jim mentioned the Blackburn Challenge. This is a more than 20-mile race around the island that forms Cape Ann. So in Gloucester, Massachusetts, maybe 50 miles north of Boston. It's also known as the Blackburn Challenge because it's so long and it runs in any condition. So they never cancel. I think this is actually the first year they've canceled the race in dozens of decades, many decades. As I said, 20 miles. And the other thing you'll find at the Blackburn Challenge and in a lot of the other coastal and open water races across the US is that all relevant boat classes are welcome. And so, you know, in this picture, you can see a coastal double and then what I think is probably a gig back there, which is a wooden six rower sweep boat. So there's a wide variety of different kind of boats. And what you'll hear, you know, from USRowing is we're going to have a big tent and we're going to embrace open water and coastal and all these different forms of boats as recreational, as racing, and then we're also going to develop athletes and programs for international class, which is focused on the boats that Jim talked about. We have the next slide, Alice. Okay, so now here's a video that's specifically about Hong Kong, and while Alice gets this started, I mean, Hong Kong was night and day to Victoria, which had very calm water. Hong Kong was just crazy.
Canada was spectacular with the mountains, and in Hong Kong you've got this amazing harbour that you're rowing right in the middle of.
Zone navigation is one of the biggest challenges for many, but also going around a number of tricky turning points, especially in waters that are anything but a row in the park. What we do know is that in addition to the waters, athletes are also tackling a rather challenging course, and here's what it looks like. The race kicks off at the Royal Hong Kong Yacht Club, from where it's a long straight of about 1,300 meters up to turning point 1. Only some slight turning needed here before the infamous chicane and another big change of direction towards turning point 6. It's then another lap ahead of a very last push on a straight line back to the finish, completing a grueling 6 kilometers in total.
The first of the A finals here in the Cox Women's Quadruple Sculls. And a few crews dangerously close to the line there coming out of the blocks. We can see a really good start for Denmark, who press ahead into that first turning point, 1,340 meters away. But it's going to be Spain 1 that reached that turning point first, represented by Alicante. They've managed to get the lead ahead of Monaco. Denmark again still in that chasing pack, and a really tight turn there for Hong Kong, China. Great for the home fans to have a crew up here with all of the support. But oh gosh, disaster there for the crew from Monaco. They were right up there and they were in the middle winning pack, but they'll slip back now on that turning point, on turning point 4, having crashed into the buoy. Just goes to show you that navigation is so important here. A huge flotilla of boats heading now towards turning point 5. They've got to do it all again, that loop here in the A final. 6 kilometers now for these boats to race. But coming into the final straight, it's going to be Spain 1 that comes across the line in first position, but we have been informed that Spain 1 will face a time penalty for going through the line too early, which allowed Hong Kong, China to come through and clinch victory in the women's quadruple Cox Sculls, Russia in silver and Denmark in bronze.
However, there are plenty of strong contenders for the title, led by the very impressive Ukrainian combination of Yuri Ivanov and Andrei Kachanov.
Coastal men's double sculls A final lining up now to see who will be crowned champion. And Ireland hitting the line at pace there. Ireland 1 with a great start. You can just see how close all of these 16 boats are to one another. The proximity is just so close on the run up to that first turning point. It's Monaco with the best of the starts, but it's going to be really close, and a big old pile up there going on behind them. They're going to have to look back at all of these boats clashing into one another on that first turning point as they power away into turning point 2 ahead of Hong Kong, China. Our leading three as it stands at the moment, Monaco, Hong Kong, China, Ukraine up there as well, and they'll take turning point 5 in medal winning positions, but Spain won, also there in fourth, trying to get in the mix on the podium, but they'll have to take this buoy turn really quickly, and now a big sweeping bend back towards the finish line. Spain won, just undercutting the rest of the field. They're really trying to push on, and they've now overtaken Ukraine, and it's going to be the target now for them to overtake the two crews in front of them. Hong Kong, China now into third position. Spain won, keep pressuring on Monaco, and that pressure has made Monaco and Hong Kong, China succumb to a crash. Ukraine then coming up the outside, they'll fall into silver medal position behind Spain won, and Monaco will come over in bronze medal position. Spain won, champions in this event.
So just a little bit, commentary on those races that they showed and how different it is from, say, traditional head race in the US, even though the distance is comparable. You've got 16 boats starting in a heat or a final together. So that means many of them arrive at the first buoy at the same time, which makes it really exciting. So a lot, the big pileups. And we had in British Columbia, one of the most elite men's solo rowers rowing in a mixed double broke his oar on the very first buoy. And so all kinds of craziness happens on the turns. The format of the race can be different. So there isn't a standard start. Hannah's going to talk a lot about beach sprints. For the endurance races, they can have a water start and water finish, what we saw in Hong Kong. But that's like a sailboat race where you can be moving before the balls drop, but you can't cross the line before the balls drop. And you saw Spain lost, even though they were the first one to cross the finish line, because they crossed the start line before the start actually happened. In Canada, we had a standing beach start and a water finish, and next year in Portugal, it's going to be a beach start, beach finish. So World Rowing and the local organizing committee can make the race format different every year. The other big difference about this from traditional head racing in US rowing rules is there is no requirement to yield. So that's where the boat that's overtaking has to figure out, am I going to try and cut off that other boat, or am I going to go around, because the slower boat does not have to yield to the faster boat. The big rudder on the quad can make it really fun, and you can do quite some sneaking in on turns. So that makes it exciting as well. This is the course that's going to be run in Portugal next year, 2021. Some of the other things that are different about international elite endurance racing is that you race as a club for your country. So there can be multiple entries per country, and you race as part of your club. The national governing body, in our case, USRowing, will rank the entries, and where you rank might force a lower ranked entry into time trials to make it into the heats and semis and finals. But it's a very different kind of field because you have multiple entries. It'll be Monaco 1, Monaco 2, Monaco 3, Spain. Lots of countries send many entries. US has sent multiple entries in both the women's doubles and the quads. US Rowing will announce its methodology for ranking entries for Coastal World Endurance Rowing earlier in 2021. The other thing that's different about the rules for this race is you don't have to be a US citizen to compete. You just have to be a member of a US club. So in our race in Canada in 2018, we had a coxswain who was Indian and a member of BIAC.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. The best thing about, because I was training that boat, the best thing about it, I was telling Arun he had to be aggressive on those turns. He said, "I learned to drive in Calcutta. I'll be fine." I'm like, yeah.
and he cut off another boat and said, "I'm going to drop that bitch," and it was really fun. Yeah.
I didn't know that story.
Yeah, the first buoy. Yeah. Okay, maybe we can have the next slide, please.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I haven't even had anything but water to drink yet. Just to talk a little bit about some of the other races that have happened in the U.S. and do happen in the U.S. You know, as Jim said, there's this long history of community racing of open water and coastal. And the only difference when you talk about these kind of community races that are long-standing is that coastal means it's raced with a FISA certified coastal boat. And so these kind of races can be any distance. So we talked about the Blackburn. I'll talk about the San Francisco and the Sarasota race coming up. Another one that was hosted, that is a traditional race, lighthouse to lighthouse race in Connecticut. So next slide. We've got San Francisco. This was, so in 2019, USRowing really wanted to encourage more development of coastal rowing. So they formed a committee that many of us on this call were on those conference calls. And the objective was to have USRowing registered coastal and open water races. And if they were FISA style 6K races, great. If not, great too. But one of the things that was really successful about having registered regattas as opposed to just the community longstanding kind of tradition of open water races is we had all the USRowing officials there. And a lot of open water rowers are self-taught, as Jim said, not even necessarily part of a club, Jim Henderson said. And so there's some skepticism about USRowing. And when we ran this race in San Francisco with, I think, 13 or 14 USRowing referees and chase boats and rules and chalk talks and things like that, many of the sort of most cranky rowers who didn't even want to join USRowing in order to register for this regatta came up to me afterward and said, I see how having a registered regatta and having the officials can open the sport to so many more people because it makes it more safe, right? I mean, this is a pretty crazy race. We started on the North Shore of San Francisco, raced around Alcatraz Island, then around a buoy that's close to the Bay Bridge over to Oakland, and then back. So beautiful, beautiful setting, and really great to be able to put it on together with kind of the infrastructure that makes a race safe. The next slide, Alice, please. Which this one is, so we've got a video that shows racing in San Francisco Bay. Thanks. Yeah, it's so beautiful here. We had the head of the local organizing committee for the Hong Kong race in San Francisco right before ours, and he just said, this is where the next World Championships should be. So plug for rowing in San Francisco. Jim Henderson ran a race a month or two after ours in Sarasota, similar registered race with great umpires, brought a lot of new people to the sport. This is where the trials will be both for the under 19 team and the senior elite team to go to a World Rowing Beach Sprints Finals, which is what it's called, not Beach Sprints Championships, also in Portugal next year. So the trials will be in the third week of June. They'll be held together, both seniors and juniors. It's the week after juniors national championship. So we tried to make it simple. And Jim is going to be helping to run that. Jim Henderson will be helping to run that in Sarasota. Next slide. And then just, we talked about this a little bit before, the Lighthouse to Lighthouse is a long race. It also includes all kinds of human-powered craft. One of the great things for diversity inclusion for coastal rowing, number one is it's really fun, and there's much less of an emphasis on the, like, I have to submit myself to the boat and take away my personality and become one with everybody else, because you really have to become one with the water. And it is just, we had one rower who's a longtime collegiate rower, masters rower, go out and do a coastal training, and she came back and said it's like playing on the playground. And so there's a lot more kind of rugged individualism welcomed in coastal rowing. And you also see a lot of crossover between coastal rowing and paddling sports. So surf ski, kayak, OC6, Lighthouse to Lighthouse has all of those kinds of boats. And Gwyn Batten herself is both a champion flatwater rower, champion coastal rower, champion paddler. So it's part of what's really exciting about this sport. Let me turn it back over to Alice to talk about some of the key aspects of racing.
Okay, well, let's ask Sarah. Are there any questions, Sarah?
Yes, there are a few. Hannah did answer one, but I think this is important. So those videos were super exciting. But one person said, one of the best things about the Head of the Charles is the turns really get your adrenaline going. What are adrenaline levels like when you do race coastal races?
So I'm gonna say, I'm really old and Jim can back me up here, but it used to be a lot more exciting when you had head races, when Head of the Charles and Head of the Lake was a buoy and you went around a buoy and there wasn't a funnel and there wasn't a no passing zone. So it's sort of like how head racing used to be. And the technical rule for FISA is severe damage. So you're not allowed to do severe damage to another boat. Severe does not include breaking an oar. I mean, severe is like a loose term that we have different lawyers defining what severe is for us. So it is a lot of adrenaline and a lot of strategy that you have to do on the fly, especially in the endurance races when you're out there trying to make that decision on, are you going to go wide? Are you going to go narrow? Are the boats in front of me going to have a collision and now I have to go wide around them? I mean, Hannah's definitely going to talk more about having to be a thinker in those endurance races, but a lot of adrenaline in the endurance races. You're not
So I think it could be summed up by saying it's more like NASCAR. I mean, there are gonna be those collisions, and you know, are you gonna be obstinate and take the collision, or are you gonna try to figure a way around and win the race? You know, so there's a whole different type of mentality that goes along with it. But I think with the potential for that NASCAR collision, it is exciting.
Yeah. Now, when we're about to start talking about beach sprints, there are no collisions. You're in parallel lanes, but it's dynamic and interesting in other ways. But and there is adrenaline in other ways, but no contact sport.
Interesting.
What else do you have, Sarah?
Yeah, we do have a few more. With U19 beach sprints happening at the FISA World's Coastal Championships in Portugal, will US Rowing add beach sprints to the youth regional and national championship? That's a very good question. And I will say, I'll comment on this real quick if you guys don't mind too. But at the US Rowing level, we do have a coastal working group, as Sharon mentioned as well. So we are looking on how that will fit. We don't necessarily have those answers right now, but I can say we do. You're looking at very passionate people that are working on exactly how to do so. So more to come on that. Do you guys want to add anything else on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely planning to have youth trials in June after Youth Nationals. So the plan in 2021 is not necessarily to include coastal events or beach sprint events with existing races, because also they're on different kinds of courses and different water. But we did make them contiguous weekends to make it easier for people to stay. I'm going to talk a little bit coming up on where some of these boats are, but we're going to talk in a couple of minutes about also what we did and what we are doing to develop youth capabilities in beach sprints in particular.
Awesome. I'm going to throw one more question at you before you guys get going. You kind of touched on this. So is coastal good for windy conditions in Great Lakes and other large bodies of water?
Yeah, yes, definitely. And I'll show a bunch of pictures of that coming up.
Yes.
Awesome.
You can row a coastal boat on any condition you want, but it's definitely more fun when water's flying. And if you're rowing on perfectly flat water in a coastal boat, you think you've made the wrong choice. Right? It's
Yeah,
just like, I should have done it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll show a picture later on of Fran Tweet, who might well be a participant here this afternoon, but who's an elite masters rower in Chicago, rows at Lincoln Park Boat Club, and Lincoln Park, for anybody who's rowed it, it's a 1 kilometer long, 2-lane, tiny little channel right alongside Lake Michigan. So you've got, billions of acres of water over there, and you're in this little tiny lane, and that's where she practices her flat water racing. But whenever she doesn't feel like rowing in that little channel, she takes her coastal boat out onto the big lake. And so, lots of people cross over between the two kinds of rowing. And wherever the water is wide, basically, you have a long, what's in sailing called a long fetch that tends to make the waves bigger. That's a great place for coastal rowing.
I know that Bill Donahue, who's probably on this call, is working on a Great Lakes series right now to try to get a bunch of clubs together to start sponsoring this, because it is perfect there. I've been to the Buffalo Rowing Club, which is the same thing that Sharon's describing. It's just a canal off of the lake where it's great for flat water, but you look out at the Great Lake and it's awesome for what we want to do, so there's so much potential out there and so many great venues that could be exciting. And I think it'll be a much more interesting spectator sport.
Good segue. Hannah, can you please tell us about beach sprint rowing?
I would love to talk about beach sprint rowing. Okay,
and introduce yourself a little bit, Hannah, please.
All right. I'm Hannah Wayman Steele. I did not row in high school or college. I was introduced to it afterwards, and came to BIAC in 2016. First got into the sport, I think, because people were talking about it. Sharon and others were going to the World Champs in 2018. And so my background is volleyball. I played volleyball in high school. I played Division III volleyball. I played beach volleyball. And so the prospect of a type of rowing that also requires so many other athletic skills just super appealed to me. And so I raced the Coastal Women's Single and Coastal Women's Double in Hong Kong. Placed 9th overall in the single and 7th overall with Sydney Taylor in the double, and just absolutely loved it. I'm so excited about this sport. I'm so excited that, there's so much to learn, and there's so much, it's just really fun. Yeah. So as I think you can tell from everyone. So beach sprint rowing. So Sharon talked a lot about this endurance type, which is out fighting other boats, going around buoys, rough water, steering your own course. Beach sprints, in contrast, is this fast, furious, one boat versus one boat. So there's a couple classes, singles, doubles, quads. You're not, like folks said, you're not fighting against each other to go around any buoys. Both boats have their own course. It's 250 meters out, it's 250 meters back. There's, as you can see in this picture here, it's a beach start. You're sprinting from a finish line to the boat, then you're sprinting back. And I think we're going to watch some video of it coming up. Is that right?
Yeah, nice segue. Perfect.
Now we're going to move on. Here is the A final.
And in lane number 2, representing China, Huang Zhou.
我可以简单做一个采访。其实呢，今天也是我们的最后的一场比赛总决赛了。有没有信心？
So one thing is they're right about to go to the line. It's not that quiet line like we're used to. They get interviewed and then they race.
会不会拼尽全力？会。So Huangzhou gonna bring it home. It's the homeland, the host. They're gonna bring the trophy back to this land.
Do you think you can do the same for Spain? Is the gold medal going back to Spain?
Espero que sí, espero que vuelva. Para España, que venga la medalla para España.
So, confidence on both sides here. We're going to send you off. Best of luck for the gold medal match.
加油!
Adrian Miramon-Quiroga going to give it everything for Spain there to try and take the gold medal home. He's up against very hot competition. We just heard from Huang Jie. He's going to be giving it his all to a new father, baby boy born today. But he will have to somehow scratch that from his mind to focus on what lays ahead. The technical expertise required to enter and exit the boat cleanly, line up and navigate the course in, despite being relatively calm, there is an offshore cross breeze that could upset ever so slightly. You just miss one of those turning points as Huang Jie did in the time trial, and that's it. You get a 30-second penalty, which spells an end to your medal hopes. They're already medalists. Question is, which one's taking the gold? We now await the starting umpire to call them to attention.
So this is real time, the 5 minutes before the race that we're watching.
Here we go, two real sprinters down to the beach. Tough to do the deceleration, leaping into the water.
It's not often that you see Huang Jie beaten in a beach sprint, but it is the Spanish sculler that has managed to make the better of it, and he is away. Huang Jie just struggling with his bow side blade there in the first few strokes, but look at the sculler from Spain, absolutely blasting towards his first marker.
That was phenomenal. Quiroga has beaten Huang Jie off the beach. Huang Jie then clearly didn't have his blade orientation quite right on his bow side blade. It just caught in the water. He then had to fiddle with it. That split second has cost him a few meters at least. It's only 8 separating them, so it's not the largest of margins. That can easily be won and lost with not only the turning point that remains, the main turning point, but also that beach landing. They're pretty matched for speed.
They're incredibly close here. It looks to me as though Huang Jie from China is starting to make an impact on the sculler from Spain, who's still in the lead. Great shot there from inside the boat. You can see him looking over his right shoulder, trying to gauge that top marker as he digs his blade in here to try and get around.
Look how much tighter Huang Jie's taken that corner. There's perhaps half a boat length further than the turning point Quiroga went than he needed to. That could have cost him, considering how tight the margins are. Navigation's looking pretty straight. They're both pinpoint accuracy straight back to the shore. Little correction required. Question is, who can ride the minor swells that we're seeing back there to either conserve energy or take a bit of boat speed from that swell? Great inside view here. Huang Jie, Quiroga, nothing separating them as they come towards the beach. Quiroga has in fact extended the lead perhaps a length, but you can see here from the cross view, it's only really half a length. The GPS signal is where we're taking those distances from, but of course they could land anywhere on that beach. So the real question is, how far from their turning flag do they beach, and therefore what impact does that have? Look at this, you can see Quiroga's just riding a wave there. That's going to give him some extra speed down onto the beach. I think he's looking good for the gold medal here. He stopped rowing, watching more to take that better dismount.
And
he knows
look at
he's
his
won it already. Look at that.
A big yell there from Quiroga. He's got his hands above his head, flexed arms, and he's done it.
The only one to press the buzzer with his foot so far in competition. But he is champion of the world when it comes to the beach sprint finals in the men's solo. Fantastic performance, great sportsmanship here too from the Spanish athlete Adrian Miramon.
All right. Exciting racing. So Hannah, you talked a little bit about this. Keep going, keep preaching.
So on the right we see a layout of the course that those two athletes in the video just demonstrated as well. And Alice, I'm just forgetting what the circles represent.
Those
So
are
here's
buoys.
all the, sorry?
Those are the buoys that you have to go around.
No, sorry, no, those circles.
No, those are the juniors races on the left. The circled ones are the juniors or the U19s.
Okay, so all of them are all the events that will be happening in Portugal in 2021. Okay, thanks. And then the circled ones are the U19 events. Okay. Yeah, what's on our next slide?
Well, next slide. Woo! Dang it. I don't know what's happening to the universe. Wow, that was sorry.
Right. So a really, I remember now. So a really crucial part of this beach sprints racing that you maybe saw is it's not just the rower who is helping the win. There's a set of boat holders who are holding the boat, who are helping the rower get going. And there's a lot of fun footage to watch from China from 2019 of things going wrong. And so it's really kind of a critical team part of the sport. And Alice, I'll let you say more.
Thank you. Sorry, my phone was on a button on my other computer, which is why it got so fast. Yeah, so as Hannah said, pit crew is so important. I think it's going to be somewhat equivalent to a coxswain, where most rowers feel like, I don't know why they're in here. And then when you don't have one or you have a bad one, you're like, oh, right, I know why they're in here. So the pit crew is part of the team, or your boat holders. You're allowed to have up to 2. The picture on the left is at our U19 event. We had 2. And then on the right is a master's practice we had where people are practicing with the boat holders. They can help with steering. They hold your boat. You saw in that video that at the 3-minute mark at the last beach sprints, at the 3-minute mark, they carried the boat and put it into the water. And where they put it is going to be your line when you get in. And when you're watching the videos, you'll see people jumping it, or when they just handed the oar to the guy from China, the boat holder probably gave it to him in a little bit of a bad orientation, so he was fiddling with it. If you watch the videos, a good boat holder is going to be like a good pit crew, and you don't know that they're there. But the bad ones, for example, a woman from Spain, one of her boat holders was on the bow side of her rigger, And so when they went to shove the boat, he had to dive underneath the rigger because he realized he was on the wrong side. And then the other boat holder, it shot her off at the wrong angle. So she had to row back onto the course, and she lost by a very small margin. And clearly the boat holders didn't help her with that. So as the sport evolves, I think the boat holders will be like assistant coaches, and they're people that you train with, and they are there to make you look good. And so it's a hybrid part of the sport. It's interesting that right now, a lot of people, when they go to either the endurance or the beach sprints, if they don't come with boat holders, they'll find another international athlete in a different category, and they'll take turns being each other's boat holder. But as I said, I think in the future, that will be a really trained position. So here is part of a training book for boat holders, and you can see them getting in and holding the boat and trying to get them organized and sent off. And you probably want to work with your boat holders to know how you like your oars. Do you want them flat? Do you want them square? Do you want them in half slide? That those things that'll make it easier for you. I was talking over the video, but one substantial difference is the starting zone. So flat water rowers, we all know that quiet up at the start where everything's still and there's a little bit of high-fiving with your teammates and the referee is doing the countdown, but there's not a lot of conversation. Here, they're literally interviewing you and asking you if you're going to be the world champion or not. And then you go to the line and the cameras are literally in your face, and it's like theater in the round compared to what we are used to, and having your boat holders prepare you so that you can hop in versus, oh, we're all sitting at 3/4 slide, we're all even, we practiced this. you know, a wave comes through and changes everything for you. So it is a definitely dynamic moving thing. And boat holders are going to be an interesting component of this sport as it evolves. So BIAC, where some of us are from, we did have a U19 camp in October. It was fabulous. We ended up having 7 kids from across the country, and we practiced beach sprints, and we had a scrimmage, and it was 2 days of camp, and everybody learned a lot. And here's a little recap video. So you can see in beach sprints, one of the appealing parts for spectators who like rowing and spectators who just happen to be standing on the beach is that it is really easy to watch the start and the finish of the race. It's 250 meters. The other thing that's very interesting is the centers are 7-minute centers, but depending on the ladder, you could race and then 7 minutes later you race again, or 21 minutes later you race again. So it's a lot of racing. As Hannah was saying, you need to be a versatile athlete to do beach sprints well.
It's just something completely different, and it just feels like anything can happen and anyone can win or lose at any point. Nothing feels like set in stone. It's just nice to do something completely different out there, and it's a nice short race. But it's still really difficult because it's a full-on sprint. So it's probably about the same length and time as doing like half of a 2K, which is what I'm used to. But it's a completely different like muscle system that you're using to do this beach sprints, because it's about 3 minutes. So you don't really have time to like settle into a race rhythm. It's just kind of go from the minute you get in to the minute you get out. The adrenaline you have is like up here the whole time until you hit that buzzer.
That I maybe answered that other person's question about adrenaline. So there's a picture of Hannah in action doing endurance rowing, and share some more thoughts as an athlete, Hannah.
Yeah, so I really love this picture of my doubles partner and I, because you know, you can see like we're synced up, we're as doubles partners should be, but also our handle heights are like so far away from what, you know, you might think that normal hand heights should be. And I think a lot of people have kind of alluded to this, but for both, you know, both types of racing, whether it's 3 minutes beach sprints or it's 30-minute 6-kilometer final, there's so much thinking and there's so much reacting to your environment involved. And part of the learning of it, and I think why people love it so much and find it to be so fun, is just, it's almost like every stroke is a new stroke, and you know, you just feel your brain, like as we do in flat water as well, but you just feel you losing your sense of self if you're, you know, if you're doing it right, and just absolutely trying your hardest to feel, you know, where are the waves, where is the current taking me, what is the, you know, there might be a wave going underneath you, and that wave has its own rhythm, and you know, you have your own rowing rhythm, but that at a certain point you realize, oh, like I'm maybe going to adjust my stroke right now, so instead of just, you know, there's almost something kind of musical, rhythmic. You're like, oh, I'm going to start taking strokes in threes or something like that to like keep on top of this wave or something like that. Like, so one moment that in the women's single final, so we saw that nice overview of the Hong Kong course. There's this last 1 kilometer straightaway that was just very windy and rough. And as I was coming into that, I had gotten into some like moments of carnage and stuff earlier, some collisions. And so I felt like I was like behind maybe where I could have been if it were just like raw, you know, time, like if we were just doing an erg test. And so, you know, I was thinking, I was like, gosh, dang it. Like how, you know, and so I look behind and see a boat, you know, I don't know the distance behind me. And I was like, I'm going to you know, figure out how to get past that boat. And kind of felt in that moment, and I don't have the right words yet to say what the wave particularly was doing, but there on one side of me, there was like a wave that was clearly moving faster. And so, you know, 30 minutes in, like my lizard brain base was like, oh, well, like let's get on that wave. That seems promising. And I got on it and realized, you know, you look at your speed on your speed coach, it's just absolutely like moving way faster than I was before, and realized I was gaining on, I think it was Spain or something. And so it's just moments like that that to me make the sport just totally exhilarating, because you're picking your course, and you're, you know, it's not always good. Sometimes you try picking a course and you realize you're like, they call it washing machine water, because it's just like tossing you and you're not going anywhere. But so I managed to pass Spain, who was not looking at all happy that I was just like kind of zipping by her, like, you know, maybe taking a course that wasn't the shortest, like point A to point B, but going around her and having caught that faster wave. And then came in a little bit ahead of her. And that just was so exhilarating to me. And like, I think I said, I came in, you know, 9th overall, which was like, whatever. But Sharon pointed out to me as well that if like they had the times posted for the different courses. And so for the last like kilometer, I think I had the second fastest split after like the person who came in number 1. And so that was cool. And again, that was just because like there happened to be that wave, and I like figured it out in that moment. You know, there are lots of other moments I got wrong, but it's moments like that keep me coming back. So that was a long story. But
yeah, no, that was great. We actually, there's a question here that maybe you can touch on, or really anyone on the panel, but talking a little bit more of technique and how it might differ from rowing too, if anyone wants to touch on that.
Well, it's all rowing, just to be clear. I think the question is, how is flat water technique different than coastal technique? Hannah, you want to take that?
So I guess because the boats are so much heavier, it is a lot, I guess. I mean, it's heavier at the catch. You don't need as much layback. You look at like the splits of some of that sprint racing, and they're like at 50 at the start. And I'd say you're trying to get in as many good strokes as you can. Like another thing, the water is rough. The blades may not always be there. I guess like people say, you know, technique quote doesn't matter as much in coastal, but I would say it's a different kind of technique, because you're trying to get your blades in, you're still feeling the water. If you know, if not more, so you're trying to feel the water. I
would disagree a little bit. I think that technique is equally as important in coastal as it is in the other, because whether you're doing a 250-meter sprint, turning and coming back, the major muscle groupings are going to create the fastest boat. And I think you really have to focus on that. I think Hannah's point is a great point in that you really have to be thinking more in coastal, because if you can pick up that wave and if you can ride down that other side, you're going to be picking up speed. So you have to be aware of all those things. In my club, there were many Olympic flat water paddlers, and those paddlers would row along with me and ride the small wake off of my single. So you realize how valuable that is, and I think that's a big part of the sport. It's how smart you are to get to the finish line, and it's not taking so many perfect strokes. It's being innovative and taking the strokes when you need to. But I really think the technique is going to hold true to the conventional rowing. My 2 cents.
No, I think or in or out, right? Like good technique is good technique. But I do think when we talk about it being for like the mountain bike, the gearing that's on a mountain bike that makes a mountain bike isn't in the boat. The gearing is the athlete. So the athlete, when they see that buoy coming up, they might have to take some flutter strokes to time that buoy right, or they might need to take a wide turn to catch that wave. So I rode 3-seat for 1 year, so I can say it. This is not a sport for 3-seat. This is a sport for people who can think on the fly as they're going. So the or in or out rowing cleanly, still true, but being able to make adjustments as you're going. On the slide you're looking at right now, one thing Jim didn't talk about with the boats, singles are called solos in coastals, doubles are doubles, quads are quads, but singles are called solos. This is the time that a woman's single estimate in the solo is going to take. So you can see how much of it is running, how much of it is rowing, how much is it turning. So you have to do a lot of thinking. I think the only part you don't have to think so much about is the buzzer to the boat at the start, because it's a set place and you saw that ahead of time. Everything else, you have no clear idea where that's going to be and where those waves are going to be. And you have to be able to think. You can't just visualize out, this is how my race is going to be, because you have no idea truly what your race is going to be like. And that's kind of the joy of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll mention, I just put into the chat for all participants links to a lot of material, both our website, Ben Booth's blog, Rebel Rows, and the World Rowing Manual. So there's lots of technique and training information on all 3 of those resources.
Yeah. Look, another video.
You really need to have like a 360 view of what's going on around you. Like, when's the next buoy? When am I making that turn? You need all of your senses.
You don't know what to expect. Conditions can change at the snap of a finger, and you really just have to roll with it. You can get hit by a random wave. You can have an animal pop up in front of you. A seal, a turtle, a shark. You just have to be able to adapt to whatever the environment throws at you.
Row really well and be really fit and really strong. But if you mess up the start and you mess up the turns and you don't interact with the other boats well, you won't necessarily win.
Every race is different. It can be flat water and it can be a lot of waves, and you have to be prepared for everything.
You can show how strong you are, but you can also show how smart you are. And in flat water rowing, you can be really smart, but nobody cares. And here it's really important.
Exciting. Yeah, exciting. Chaotic. Unpredictable. Unpredictable.
The first time I tried coastal rowing, I don't know if I was totally sold on the concept of coastal rowing, but when I got my first surf with the waves, I thought it was the most fun experience that I've had in rowing.
When I get out there and there's waves overhead breaking and the wind is howling, I just feel so calm. Sort of merging with that power of that environment. just a stunning and kind of addictive thing, you know?
It's a good feeling, man. I mean, you get on a wave and you hit it just right and you start to take off and you can actually go faster than flat water shells.
C'est tout le temps une bataille contre les éléments puisqu'il y a toujours la mer qui est là et à chaque fois qu'on va sur un plan d'eau différent, on ne sait jamais sur quelle mer on va se trouver.
You see so many different people win this, right? You don't see like the dynasty of, you know, this guy's gonna win, right? Because it's like, well, one course is gonna favor somebody way more than another. You know, a flat water course is gonna favor, you know, the big, strong, fast guys, where if it was a stormy, wavy, it would favor the more pure coastal rowers.
This is a really relation test to step in the boat exactly on the same time and with the same balance and row away exactly on the same time.
Ça met un peu de piment dans l'aviron de mer. Il y a tout le public qui est devant nous, il y a un silence royal dès qu'on lance le départ. Je trouve que ça fait monter l'adrénaline.
Il faut rester très lucide parce que les coulisses peuvent dérailler, les pelles on peut faire ce qu'on appelle une faute de pelle.
It's pretty exciting because that can be part of the strategy and it's part of the be ready for anything aspect of this type of racing. Okay, we're tight on the buoy on this one. So you watch your blades. We've got two boats on the other side. Turn now. Okay, go clean. No, this side, port side. No, starboard side.
With normal rowing, you are very safe between your own lines. And now you're interacting with each other because there are 5 buoys. And yeah, we all have to go around that same buoy. So there is a possibility of hitting each other, clashing each other.
You either make a choice between being very aggressive and going right for the buoy, or being more conservative and taking more of a gentler approach to it.
Ça réserve plus de surprises, je pense, que l'aviron de rivière.
In a chaotic situation, how do you find smooth, right? And so if it's giant waves, where do you find the lines that you can navigate those waves? If it's a buoy turn, amidst that chaos, where's the calm? Where can you slip through all of that disaster and get out unscathed? It's a different boat. Basically, they're big, and so they're more stable. And from that difference, there's just a whole host of nuances. You have to row them differently because they're bigger, heavier. They don't run as far between strokes.
It takes energy to get the boat moving. So in a 2K race, you get the boat moving once and you hold it. In this race, there's 5 buoys, so you have to pick the boat up 5 times. So that does add up.
On a 2K course, you plan your race, you know where you want to put your pushes, and there's not much to do with other crews. But
with this, you have to be prepared to switch up your pacing at a moment's notice.
You have to look where the other crew is, where to go, push before a marker or just after, and that makes it, you have to think a lot more during a race.
One of the announcers said, "This is a contact sport we're going for."
Oh
my gosh, rowing a contact sport.
You also have to interact with the other crews. It's more like boxing.
The sound of sinking at the end is not probably the right sound, but I think they reiterated what we were saying really nicely, that it, oops, sorry, I tried the wrong bar. Whew. So Sarah, do we have any questions on what we've already covered?
One thing I'll throw at you, this is a good one from Chris. With a drink in hand, I'm asking the question, would the panel say that coastal boats are an appropriate boat for a wide range of athletes, masters, youth, even many adaptive athletes?
So a coastal boat is good for a wide range of people for sure. And I think we talk about inclusion towards the end of it with middle school and things like that. Coastal racing, as someone who also coaches para, at 2017, Brazil and the United States both had a para athlete racing there, not as a para athlete, but as a para athlete who went to world championships in coastal. It does not, there is no adaptability to it. So it's going to be challenging to have it, in my opinion, have it be at para rowing as part of coastal racing with beach sprints and all those versatility things, because that's probably why they're a para athlete and those things are kind of challenging. I'm saying this as a para coach, but otherwise the coastal boats, the hull itself with a small C, absolutely. We're going to talk again a little bit more about that later, but our local high school, sister high school program has some of those coastal quads. And the thing that they teach their middle school kids how to row them, and what's so great about it is anybody who's ever taught novices knows the first 2 weeks, you're really spending a lot of time teaching the people who are setting the boat up to set the boat up so that the other two people can row. And these coastal boats do that for you. So they get to all 4 rows sooner. They get to do square blades without crabbing out. And it is a great platform for teaching anybody how to row, corporate events. Yeah, drink in hand or not. Anybody else want to add in on that, knowing there's more slides to go with it?
Absolutely. I think it's a great training tool that any club would benefit having these boats in their arsenal or fleet of boats, you know, from adaptive to the middle school to masters that have never rowed before. Get them in the boat. They're going to have a better experience because the boat's going to be more stable. And from a coaching aspect, you're going to be able to teach that person quicker because of the stability of the boat. They're going to be able to learn the rudiments of the sport much sooner. I think everybody wants one.
I don't know. Are you getting a commission? So we are, I'm joking. So Bob Ernst has quietly been hanging out with us. He was one of the coaches of the U19 camp, and he's going to talk about being a pioneer, and I'll let Bob introduce himself. But part of the reason he's talking about coastal pioneering is because he's already done a lot of different types of pioneering in the sport of rowing and has seen the start before and has some good insight on that from his own experiences and from being involved in it. So Bob Ernst, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Yeah, thanks, Alice. Well, actually, I've done a lot of coaching on an international level and intercollegiate level. And a couple of months ago, Alice asked me if I would like to be involved with the U19 beach sprints camp that they were going to host in San Francisco. And unfortunately, because of COVID, I wasn't able to be as involved as I wanted to be, but I did get involved and certainly learned some things about beach sprints and coastal rowing. And when we're talking about being a pioneer, we're talking about thinking and doing new things. So I thought maybe it would be fun to share some of my reflections with you. Certainly, some people might think that what we're talking about is a rival for flatwater rowing, and I don't see that at all. I see coastal rowing and beach sprint racing as a complement to the kind of rowing that we've all been doing for all these years. Wow. And this sport is really fun. It's really fun. It's really interesting. And it's really about maybe another application of what we already know as rowing. One of the interesting insights to me was how many new venues that beach sprint rowing could open up for us. You know, certainly back in the day when women's racing used to be 1,000-meter racing, or masters racing is 1,000-meter racing, you have a lot of inner city parks with ponds and small lakes and so on and so forth. Hey, I see being able to do beach sprint type racing in a lot more places. And, you know, I could see it at Green Lake, or I could see it in downtown Oakland. I could see it in the middle of campus at UC Santa Barbara. There are just lots of places that we could open up and have a lot of new fun with rowing, and certainly introduce a lot of new people to the sport. And I also see it as an opportunity for maybe many different types of athletes, maybe a little different morphology and a little different physiology. When you're talking about a beach sprint race where you've actually got to run from the starting line and a certain amount of agility to get in this boat. And, some of the videos that Alice was showing us was on nice flat water in San Francisco Bay. And then I guess you saw enough to know that we could actually be rowing out through surf and going around buoys and coming back. So it might be a great opportunity for a little bit different athlete. Certainly, it's going to take a water person to be able to be really good at this sport, because you're going to have to be able to row in all different kinds of conditions. The training is going to be a lot different. I would say probably not nearly as much time on an ergometer if you're training for a 2.5 minute race versus one that's 7 or so minutes long. I think that this could be a major breakthrough for a lot of club programs, because now you've got a whole new product, if you will, to sell to your community. And I was talking to a couple of club coaches not too long ago about this, and they were associated with parks and recreation departments or YMCAs or whatever. Now you've got a complement to go along with your flat water program. And, it doesn't take a lot of skill to get started in this. And the kids, young kids, masters, anybody from your community could come out and actually get rowing right away. And I also see it as a possibility for a sort of an off-season sport. Now, I know that in the fall, we do a lot of head racing. I guess I could see us developing a season for beach sprints type racing. As a matter of fact, when I first started looking at this sport, I thought, aha, here's a parallel that I thought of that'd be very much like beach volleyball is to indoor volleyball. Beach volleyball, one of the main attractions for International Olympic Committee and lots of clubs is that you don't need to have an exotic facility for this. The events are easy to put on in a small area. There are lots of venues that are available. Naturally, this would be a really attractive event to cover on TV, because you've got a lot of action. You can see the whole race. It's over with in 3 minutes or so, and of course the entrepreneurial of us would think you could sell tickets to this. Okay, so there you go. You got a sport that could develop and evolve in a way similar that beach volleyball has. And as I thought about it, maybe that in intercollegiate volleyball over the last 5, 6, 7 years, the NCAA has adopted sand volleyball, which is beach volleyball, okay? And they consider it another sport. And I could see that the NCAA or the IRA might be interested in having championship events in a second sport. It might involve some of the same athletes that our springtime events might, but certainly we're always looking for new ways to show off our sport, to develop our athletes, and certainly to offer ways for our athletes and coaches to have a lot of fun. It was interesting for me to look at the equipment, because, hey, This equipment isn't nearly as expensive as buying one of our racing eights, a first-class racing eight. So the boats are relatively inexpensive. These things are bulletproof. You can store them outside without too much risk to the equipment. And one of the things I see is if you actually take your equipment to races, much easier to trailer, much easier to put on top of a pickup truck and get good equipment to races. And I also see, as they do in sailboat racing, I could see that you could actually show up at a championship race and the boat builders would actually have a boat similar to yours, and everyone could row or just borrow a boat basically, or rent a boat on the scene. And then look at what we're saving ourselves right there. All you really have to do is get the athletes there. And I can tell you, no, I don't have to tell you what it's like to drag boats all the way across North America, or try to go to Spain or China or someplace like that and have a boat builder ship your equipment there. So lots of possibilities along the equipment lines. And finally, this, I call them made for TV sports, but it certainly looks like the IOC is going to adopt beach sprint racing for the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. And we all know that not only is it a made for TV event, it's a made for Manhattan Beach event for the 2028 Olympics. So it's going to be attractive there. World Rowing is already having world championships in these events. The US hasn't been too involved so far, but hey, let's be pioneers and let's figure out how we can get some more of these boats, how we can get them involved in our clubs, how we can get people of all ages interested in the sport, and let's be ready for 2028. So yeah, be a pioneer, set some goals, and let's get involved. Thanks, Alice.
Awesome, Bob. Nice segue. Exactly. And next we are back to, my cursor being on the wrong screen, sorry. Sharon is going to talk about recreational opportunities and the diversity and all the things that the Chris, because there's a few of you with a cocktail in the hand, the Chris asked about. So Sharon, please.
Yeah, thanks, Alice. So we talked a lot about racing. Coastal racing is incredibly fun, but coastal recreational rowing is also incredibly fun. So here's some examples rowing in cities. So I talked a little bit about Fran Tweet, rowing Lincoln Park. I row at Lincoln Park whenever I'm in Chicago. That's her, on the big Lake Michigan. The lower left is Bill Donahoe in front of the stadium in Cleveland. That's the lower right is a picture in San Francisco, our iconic Golden Gate Bridge. But the upper left is actually some of the worst coastal water I've ever rowed in was the canals in St. Petersburg, Russia. So we took, I was on a Rowing the World trip there with coastal coxed quads, and it was crazy bad water. It's the only time I've had to bail a coastal boat. And it's a spectacular city, Baroque masterpieces like Vienna, but all on water. So there's all kinds of places where you can row with coastal boats that you would never be able to take a flat water boat. And it's a great way to see the city from the water side. Next slide, Alice. And there's also spectacular island rowing. So the photo on the lower right is in the Maldives. That's actually where I learned coastal rowing. That's Gwyn Batten herself in the bow seat of that boat with a Maldivian rowing coach. So just incredible development opportunity for the small island countries. The IOC is really interested in getting into our sport. This is a big part of the push for diversifying the contestants in the Olympics, and it's a spectacular vacation, by the way. So you can row in Canada, you can row in the Greek islands, you can row in the Caribbean islands, and what was planned as the FISA World Rowing Tour this past year, this year we're still in for a few days, was in American Samoa. So where they normally have, you know, I don't know how many, 100 people in eights on flatwater rowing, this year was meant to be a coastal rowing tour, and they're planning to row it in 2021. How do we get started as a club or as an individual? So as a club, you know, we've talked about the boats. One of the great things is these boats are not very expensive. I'm going to show, the next slide is going to show where some of the boats are currently based in the US. But, you know, it's a friendly group of people and a friendly group of clubs. So reach out and learn from the people around you. You don't have to start with a huge program. We don't need, it's not like you need multiple eights at $60,000 a piece. If you have, we ran that coastal beach sprints camp and a race that was in the same format as the World Championships with 3 boats. 2 that raced head to head and 1 that was there in case one of the equipment broke. So you can run a World Championship class race with 3 single boats. So it's pretty accessible to get started. And for, you know, as I think it was Jim Henderson said early on, lots of people buy these boats individually to row. If you have a lake house, these are great boats because you can go out in all kinds of conditions. I mean, what we say in San Francisco is you can take a flatwater boat or even an open water boat out, but you may not be able to get back. And one of the great things about coastal boats, you have a much greater chance of being able to return when the conditions change. And so that, you know, just the safety level and accessibility of the coastal boats is really great. And then maybe we can go to the next. So where are these boats in the United States? They're where the very large bodies of water are, because like I said, you know, if you read anything about sailing, it's all about the wind makes the waves. And so it's not just the 2 coasts, but the upper Midwest is pretty fertile grounds for coastal rowing. USRowing, the committees that we have going on, there's one committee that is working on athlete development for elite competition, and then another committee that's working on sort of national level events. And so one of the resources that we're creating for the community at large is a database of where there are clubs and where there are boats, so that you'll be able to, you know, like the Oar Finder, find a club or find a boat and know where to get started. The other way that you can find a boat, if you're not really sure, you want to give it a try, is ask the boat manufacturers. They all know where their boats are. You know, we're still in the phase where everybody knows every boat and every individual. So if you contact Jim or one of the other manufacturers, they'll be able to tell you where there's boats available near you that you might be able to give a try. And actually, I'll say I've made really close personal friends by going and trying out people's boats in different places and rowing together on crazy water. And it's so much fun that it just builds some strong friendships too. This is just a snippet of the material that I put in the chat, which is the World Rowing Coastal Handbook. It's an awesome resource. I think it's nearly 60 pages of information about, you know, from the most basic, what does this mean, to, you know, really detailed specifics on rigging, on training, on racing, etc. So if you can't find that link, just Google World Rowing Coastal Manual and it'll come up. World Rowing has also put together a Train the Trainer coaching program. We used some of it in developing our youth coastal camp, but USRowing is working on being able to roll that out nationally and license the content so that coaches across the country can learn how to coach coastal rowing to their rowers who are new to it. And then just, you know, this is last but certainly not least, diversity and inclusion is a big initiative across all of rowing and probably across all of America these days. And we've talked about this before, but the price, the stability, the accessibility make these really great options for bringing people who are new to rowing onto the water and having them feel successful and have fun really early in the process. I mean, I almost cried this year when my coach sent me a video of me sculling in my single, and I was like, shoot, I've been doing this for 10 years and I row like that in my flatwater single, and I go out in the coastal boat and I'm like, I'm just having a great time, and if my hands separate, what the heck. So I think this will be a really phenomenal way for us to expand our sport, and which will make us a more robust and durable sport. So
excellent.
Maya, it's back to you, Alice.
Thank you. So the future of coastal rowing, this is the future of elite coastal rowing. We just talked about the slide Sharon literally just did. We showed middle school kids. So the future is whatever your program wants it to be. But the future for elite coastal rowing program, the United States, as we've already said, is planning to have trials. The tentative dates for beach sprints is the 18th through the 20th of June. More information to come in January about that. It is the second beach sprints championship, and it will be the first one the United States goes to. So that's, I think, a really good thing. And then the list of the venues for the next 3 events, they haven't said where it'll be in 2024, other than it will not be part of the Olympic family, which I personally think that's okay, because I think you need to have more than 5 championships before you make it to the Olympics. And every time FISA has, or World Rowing has kind of changed the rules each year a little bit. So having more of a track pattern before we go to the big show is probably a good thing. So the Youth Olympic Games has never had rowing before, but because of what we were talking about, how beach sprints and coastal rowing is so much more accessible. You don't have to build a 3,000 meter swimming pool. Rowing will, for the first time, be part of the Youth Olympic Games, and that's in 2026. And then 2028, it would appear that it will also be in Los Angeles, and there's a lot of good beaches to choose from. Bob's already voted on his favorite beach. I will say, though, if you're at all interested in going to one of these, Wales looks like a particularly interesting venue to go to, because the venue has such a tide shift that they're actually going to have a morning course and an afternoon course, because the tide will have moved too much. It's like 30 feet or some phenomenal amount that they're going to just flip to the other side. So that seems like back to that 1,000 meter starting platform, moving up and down 1,000 meters and 2,000 meters. Sounds like Wales is going to be fun to watch and a horrible place to be the LOC. But that is our last official slide. We have a little bit of time left, which makes me so happy that we are on schedule, that everyone had a cocktail. And Sarah, do we have any questions?
We have a few questions about coxswains, to throw them out there. So are the cox hulls wired with speakers similar to flat water shells? And the second one goes into a little bit more detail on what's US Rowing's plans for cultivating coxswains who understand wind, currents, and the last minute decision making required on buoyed coastal races.
Well, I will never speak for US Rowing, but I will say that currently they don't wire those boats. I'm not sure why. If I was so right now, when you go to the World Championships, you use pool boats, and you can, sometimes there's 2 vendors there, sometimes there's only 1 vendor there. So you don't have as much control over the equipment. It also means you don't have to put it on a trailer, which is really great, and you don't have to own it, which is really great. But currently, they don't have a sound system in it. If I was to go to World Championships with a quad, I think I would bring one and some zip ties, and I would put a speaker back there and just throw it in every time my boat went out. But I know Sheila Toll is on here, and she's coxed those cox quads.
We tried to wire the quad in BC. We brought the equipment, tried to wire it, and it just never worked. I don't think it was a problem of the coastal boat. We just didn't get it to work. They're not that long. It's not really necessary. You can, it's just not that necessary. To the other question on US rowing plans, just because we talk about it actually a lot in our in the athlete development committee. We don't have anything to announce, but it's definitely on the radar screen, recognizing that it's an important part. The at elite levels, the only event in the coxed quad is for the seniors. The juniors don't have a quad, so, and there's only the mixed coxed quad at at the beach sprints. So in world championships, in endurance racing, there are more quad events.
But I would say, yeah, the manual will try and teach everybody how to do that, because a coxswain and a single sculler need to learn how to read the waves. Yeah, Jim, what do you think?
Alex, before we run out of time, I just want to make one point. You know, I've been on a lot of coastal calls over the past year with John Rhee and his group and this group and stuff. And the most limiting factor in this country is the availability of boats. And I'd like to touch back on what Bob and Sharon were saying. We need people to step up and be pioneers. We need to get more boats in the country, because trust me, people get into these boats, people are going to fall in love with these boats for any one of the number of reasons that's going to benefit our sport overall. You know, there's just so much that's good about these things that can help every program out there. So people got to go out, bite the bullet, go out and buy these boats. Trust me, you won't be disappointed.
We have 2 questions here too regarding safety. So one, what may be the requirements regarding officiating safety at the finish and start? And then also going off of the Coast Guard requirement to have PFDs and life jackets on board for the busier harbors and ports. Do you coordinate or partner with a local Coast Guard or harbor master?
I can address the Coast Guard issue. All right, the Coast Guard regulations state that the oars themselves are flotation enough for each individual. All right, and the boat itself will never sink. So that's a non-starter. That there's no problem there.
Well, there's different states. I know in the state of California, I don't believe the oars do count anymore. And in our coastal boats, we, especially for endurance races, look, a beach sprint, you're 250 meters from shore at most. If you screw up the turn, you're 260 meters from shore. So do they need a life jacket? Yeah, maybe not. But endurance racing, absolutely. You're going out in the seas. You should take a life jacket. You should take a whistle. You should take a satellite phone. When we hosted the regatta in San Francisco, we absolutely worked with the harbor master. We knew where the ships were. We had that all dialed in. So I think it depends. Are you talking about you going across an ocean, or are you going out 200 meters and back? Safety is important. I'm sure all the manuals are going to cover that. And then knowing your local rules. Absolutely.
Oh, I misinterpreted that, because in the Blackburn Challenge, the Norwalk race, everybody has to have a PFD and a whistle in the boat. So yeah, that's part of the game.
Yep. And they're designed to hold that. You know, I was a director in Tempe Town Lake, and they made us put life jackets in, and there was no place to put them other than in the portals, which you would never get them out anyway. But the coastal boats are designed to have a line on them. They're designed for safety. That's all built into it.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
That is it. Those are our last questions there. You guys have a lot of thank yous to the panelists in the chat, so I will second that. Thank you to all of you. This has been super entertaining, and those videos make me want to row right now. So thank you all. Alice, do you have any last parting words for everyone?
I'm really glad that the panel helped me do this. When they told us we had 2 hours, I was a little worried that we'd just be drinking with each other. So I'm glad we found the content. I hope people found it useful. I think everybody made good points, but key ones to reiterate is this is not trying to take the place of anything that we're doing. We're trying to augment the rowing that got us all started and that we all love, and make a bigger tent. And I think we've explained the value of making that bigger tent recreationally and competitively. I think there's boat builders that are willing to sell boats. Jim Dietz is willing for you to buy them. You know, there's resources. Sharon told you about how USRowing's working to help clubs understand a path. You know, Bob talked about being a pioneer, and Hannah did a great job telling us what it's like to be an athlete in the trenches and have to think. So hopefully that worked, and there will be more resources coming from USRowing so that the United States shows up and does a good job and presents well at whatever level we're going to, from middle school to the Olympics.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, sponsors. Once again, referees, I will see you tomorrow. We have one more day. Everyone else, thank you for joining us for the convention. We did 5 days together virtually, so everyone deserves an extra drink for that. But have a good night. Thank you again for joining us.